Thanks, guys.
Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. This is Jessops Journal.
Hey, Chief. Great to see you. Let's go chat.
Okay.
Chief Thomas, thanks for coming. It's time to sign into Jessops Journal. In this episode of Jessops Journal, I have Jeffrey James Thomas, or actually I should call you Chief. Actually, not even Chief, Battalion Chief Jeffrey James Thomas. But, you know, maybe I'll just call you Gladiator for now. So let's go ahead and do the hand sanitizing. And thanks to the guys at Ogden's Distillery for making, totally serious, Jessops Journal hand sanitizer. Go figure. Battalion Chief Jeffrey, what should I call you today?
Well, you can just call me Jeff.
Jeff,
Right,
okay.
exactly.
Now, we kind of teased a little bit in there, and you and I had talked earlier, and you were a man of stature, you were an imposing figure. And there was a little phrase that you and I talked about earlier saying gladiator. Call yourself a gladiator.
I'm currently a gladiator in the arena of the firefighting world, but back in the day, as we were discussing earlier, I arrived in Salt Lake City many years ago to perform as a gladiator in the Coliseum of the University of Utah playing football. So, I mean, I liken it to the Roman Coliseum because, you know, you have the gladiators out there battling, and that's what we were doing. And now I battle for the city of Salt Lake.
Well, thank you for being on the front lines. So what position did you play when you were in football?
I played tight end at the University of Utah many years ago, and I've got the battle scars and bad knees to be thankful and grateful for.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I always say life does come with scars, you know. So talking about that, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small oil refinery town called Richmond, California. It's just north of Berkeley in California, and I love that experience and that community, and you know, taught me the work ethics that I feel that I have today.
So what was your childhood like?
It was a normal childhood. I was blessed with a mother and father in the household, along with 3 older brothers and 1 younger sister. And I would say it was very normal. My mother was a nurse and my father was a union truck driver. So I would say they truly represented the middle class. And so I feel like I had a middle class upbringing.
So you're in Northern California. You end up here because of, you know, being a gladiator, football. Go from being a football player to a firefighter.
That's an interesting story, Doug. I actually followed in my brother's footsteps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he retired as one of the top-ranking chief officers out of the city of San Jose, California. And one day I was back home visiting him, and at the time, he was his wife was a stay-at-home mom, and he was working hard. He had a side job, and I thought, you know, with the hours that he's putting in versus the hours I'm putting in, I think this is something that I can do. As a child, I would always hang out at the fire station, and the firefighters would routinely, be welcoming. And so early on, I realized that, I think I could do that. And I think I would excel if given an opportunity to be a firefighter. And I really like to serve the community and be in a place where the young people and the young kids in the community can see me. And it's been a very rewarding career.
So how long have you been a firefighter?
You know, I've been a firefighter since 1987. So I've been at it for 33 years, going on 34. So it's been for a minute or two.
Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
Jeff, it seems to me like you're in a field where you got to be a little, I guess, wired a little differently is the polite way to put it, because you're going towards danger instead of away from danger. Do you remember the first fire that you actually, participated in?
I can remember the first, what we call working fire, where we know that this is going to require a great deal of resources to deal with it. And I remember it vividly. It was just a few blocks south and east of here. It was a basement fire in which I was the nozzleman. I'm the first person through the door. smoke-filled basement. We enter the basement doing what's called a left-hand search. Either you're going to go right or you're going to go left. You're going to grab a wall and try and follow that wall and maneuver around the obstacles as you proceed. And eventually I came to a 5x5 opening, like a box, right? A tunnel. So we proceeded down that tunnel because I could see the orange glow at the end of the tunnel. We sprayed for a while and it was still glowing. So we proceeded towards what we call the objective. I want to get closer to the seat of the fire. So me and two other guys behind me, we start proceeding down that tunnel in the basement of this apartment house, and we continue to spray, and next thing you know, I hear the muffled sounds of someone behind me. And I mean, remember, it's a 5x5 box. I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm able to turn just enough to see the glow behind us. So the fire had actually started behind us where we thought it was already out. And so I released the nozzle so the guy behind us could put it out. We ended up backing out through the fire, and that was my first experience, confined space and being in a precarious position.
So apparently you're not claustrophobic.
Actually, I am a little claustrophobic,
really?
But you know, we go through a great deal of training, and the fire service gets you ready for whatever you're going to face.
Now, I have to admit, and it was nothing compared to what you do, but I did a story where there was an open house at the Layton Fire Department. They suited me up. Okay, they said the first question they asked me was, "Are you claustrophobic?" And I'm going, we'll find out. And it says, "Have you ever worn scuba gear?" And I'm going, "No, but why do you ask?" It's like, okay, well, and so they said, "Before we let you do this, we want to have you put on this mask and we want to observe you for about 15 to 30 minutes to make sure you can handle this." And, you know, he says, "Okay, this one's not too bad. This is only about 1800 degrees. Okay, it's like, what? And I was amazed because this, you know, with all the suits and everything, that it protected you so much. But I also did notice that if you had any bare skin, man, you could feel it. Has equipment changed much in the, you know, nearly 40 years you've been in the biz?
You know, everything has changed in terms of equipment. When I first come in the fire department, we had steel bottles, and on occasion I would find myself riding on the tailboard, you know, like you would envision firefighters back in the old days, right? The guy standing on the back. So we've gone quite a distance from there these days. The encapsulated suits that you speak of, our firefighting ensemble, it does provide us with a great deal of protection from the heat and the byproducts of combustion. The only thing that really hasn't evolved a great deal is the helmet. So actually, you actually see some firefighters who prefer the old-timey helmet, and I never really understood that, but everything else in the ensemble has improved greatly. I went from a 20-minute bottle of breathing air to a 45-minute bottle worth of breathing air, and you can imagine, you know, the urgency to get the job done in that first 20 minutes before your low air alarm went off. So absolutely, the equipment's improved, the stations have improved, everything in the fire service has evolved.
Well, there was one other thing that I noticed, and I'm not sure I'm describing it right, so you'll have to help me on this one. But so we had the three, you know, I was part of a three-man team, okay? And they kept, you know, every once in a while, a beep would go off, you know, if my oxygen wasn't on right or something like that. And so they would, you know, each of the guys, they'd tap you and get stuff moving, and then, you know, anybody else. And so there was a lot of tapping going on. And apparently it's some kind of buddy system that's happened. What in the world is that beep supposed to do?
Well, if you find yourself motionless too long, right, you're not moving enough, then the alarm system is going to notice that we may potentially have a downed firefighter, right? Okay. We're working in a smoke-filled environment in which we've lost all of our senses, right? The only sense that you really have left is your sense of hearing, because you can't see, you can't taste, you can't smell. But you can hear a little bit. So that motion alarm is to indicate to the rest of the team members that somebody's not moving. As you can envision, in a smoke-filled room, if the three of us entered the room together, as you described, and two of us continue to move forward, and suddenly we hear a beat behind us, that's an indicator that something's wrong. And most oftentimes that tap is just hitting the device that says, you know what, I'm still moving, I'm okay.
I think it was just like because I was the old guy or something. I don't know. It's like I'm not moving as fast as you guys. I'm sorry. But it's like, it was interesting though to feel like quite rapidly to feel part of the band of brothers, if you will. And women as well. How hard is it to recruit firefighters?
It's increasingly becoming more difficult, and I think it's a twofold problem. A lot of kids that find themselves in college and gaining that upper education are the people that we actually want to enter the fire service. But unfortunately for us, they have their sights on more lofty goals than become a blue-collar worker in the fire service. And oftentimes the other half of the equation is we have a number of people that absolutely want the job, but they have a difficult time getting through the hurdle exams and all the prep stuff, pre-prep programs that are out there. And then again, oftentimes it's because of people's lack of knowledge that this is a career for them. So that to have this opportunity to talk about a career in the fire service is invaluable. I would really like to see more, an increase in participation from women and minorities in our community so that our fire departments throughout the entire state reflect the people that we serve. So we have had a diminished number of people looking for public safety. That's, of course, in the police and in the fire service. But I'm just kind of surprised that we have realized a decrease in fire department applicants because it is a great career.
What do you guys do when there aren't fires going on?
We do a great deal of training is what we do most often. If you think about the fire service and the fire department, just like the police department, we're asked to do a lot of different tasks. In the fire department, we are an all-risk mitigation program for the entire city and the state and the country. So we've spent a lot of time training and preparing for the next emergency and how we're going to deal with it. A great deal of our work is in the emergency medical side of the house. We are the EMS providers in the city of Salt Lake and throughout the entire state of Utah for the most part. So the paramedic service is the fire department. So we spend a great deal of continuing medical education courses as well as how to mitigate fires. So that's where we spend most of our time.
Now I'm going to switch gears on you. Yes, you're wearing the very, very cool uniform. I got to say, it's like, you're better dressed than I am today. So I want to know a little bit more about you outside of the fire stuff. So a little birdie told me that Jeffrey James Thomas is also an actor. So tell me about that.
I've started my acting career in the state of Utah all by happenstance. It's a small black community. A friend of mine, B. Murphy, he famously would sing at the jazz games and such. And he approached me and he says, Carl Malone needs some extras to help him with his new launch of his LA Gear tennis shoes.
Really?
And so, I'm working several side jobs at the time, and I asked, well, how much does it pay? And when he gave me the amount that the company was going to be paying, I thought, I could probably do this.
Did they pay you in tennis shoes?
No, no. They did
you
not.
Get any of them?
I didn't get any shoes,
man.
but the work was fairly easy, and the pay was really agreeable to me. So that's how I started, and shortly thereafter I got an agent. I did 2 extra jobs, and after that I told my agent, I don't think I want to do any more extra work, but I would be interested in some on-film talent stuff. And from that point forward, I've been acting in this market now for over 25 years and had some great opportunities.
What would be some examples of some stuff we can go see your wonderful work?
I got a couple of projects on Lifetime Network that I've done recently. I actually was cast in 127 Hours by a famous director named Danny Boyle, but unfortunately for me, no residual checks. I ended it out. I got edited out in the final cut. So
yeah, it happens.
It does happen. But I would say that's probably the biggest project I ever worked on. Of course, Touched by an Angel, Promised Land. Some of the productions that we used to have here in the state back in the day, and I still work, locally doing SAG as well as non-SAG productions here in Utah.
So have you ever been cast as a firefighter?
You know, I have not. I've been cast as a
Really?
police officer several times, but never as a. And I've auditioned for the role
I'm
of the
just saying,
firefighter.
you know, you tell them you got the uniform, okay?
Yeah, right. And I think I know the lingo.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. What are some of the other things that makes you you? What are some of the other things you do?
Well, you know, I spent some time in the community trying to help support the NAACP. I do quite a bit of fishing and outdoor activity. I'm an avid fisherman. I spend a lot of time with my family, primarily my brothers, who they're retired. The one fire chief and the other executive from Toyota, both of those guys retired. So we spend a lot of time together fishing all over the West. And then the other thing I would say, which is probably my most important job, is, you know, I have all my children here locally. And I'm a family man, and I think I'm a pretty good friend. If you're my friend, then you should know, and my friends would tell you that I'm a pretty good friend, and I think that's pretty special.
There you do. Very good. Well, you brought up the NAACP, and that's actually where you and I met. And you were, it was the MOK luncheon. And yeah, you were all, you know, gussied up like this and everything. And there were special presentations there. Number one, why were you there? And what does the NAACP mean to you?
I'm the chair of the recognition for our public safety people in our community. So I was there as a presenter and to recognize all the good work that's done in our community by our police and fire personnel. So I was there presenting that evening. And the NAACP, what does it mean to me? Well, it means it is a historic organization that most people don't realize or don't know, that it was a multicultural organization that, you know, when it started, it was brought about to deal with some of the egregious racist tactics that were being utilized in the Jim Crow South and throughout our country. So they came forward to try and help provide legal support and moral support for all those folks that were being brutalized in our community, you know, after Reconstruction. So, yeah, it is just a historic organization that still needs support today, more so than ever. You know, with the climate that we have in the world, not only in the U.S. but in the entire world, those organizations become more valuable to a community in support of trying to make things right.
This is one of those topics where I have a little skin in the game because of some family members and everything, but I need to ask you, and it's kind of I don't know, it's one of those things where it really shouldn't matter, but for some reason it does. So if you're obviously a man of color, you are a battalion chief in Salt Lake City, that is a pretty high level job. You've been serving this community for nearly 4 decades. From what I understand, you're the only black battalion chief in the entire state. Is that correct?
I'm going to say yes.
Does it matter that you're black?
Well, I think it matters to those young children who get a chance to see me, and also not just young children, but the community as a whole. I think it's a valuable opportunity for them to recognize that they too have an opportunity to not only join the fire department or public safety and to aspire to continue to move, and that there's an opportunity for upward mobility if you find yourself in the role of a firefighter. So I think it's vitally important to the community as a whole to see the diversity within the structures of the the city and the counties and the states. I mean, I beam with pride every time a child looks up at me and smiles and recognizes that I'm here, to protect and to serve them, and regardless of the color or ethnicity of the child, gender, etc. I'm just very proud. But I'm particularly proud when it's a child of color. And, I mean, my heart just beams knowing that. Hopefully I've inspired them to seek a career in the fire service, or at the least just know that, someone that understands the culture and someone that they identify with represents the fire department.
But I do like the fact that that people, especially children, can see someone that they identify with and say, okay, this is somebody that looks like me. Did you have those kind of role models when you were growing up?
You know, I did, because I grew up in, again, Northern California, right next to Berkeley. And I mean, I recall seeing black police officers and black firefighters in that environment at that time. And so that was, again, you know, an opportunity based upon my environment to see those type of examples in the community. Whereas, you know, depending on where you live and where you grew up, you may not have had those examples to see working in the field and just present in the community. And I think it's really important to be able to identify, right? You know, to see that smiling face on the other side of the equation, smiling back at you, saying everything's going to be okay.
Well, you got a great smile, so keep smiling.
I'm going to keep smiling.
Is there a fire made, besides your first one, that made an impression on you in your career? I mean, you must have fought hundreds of, you know, fires over your career, if not thousands. Is there anything where you go, okay, when you retire, you're gonna, you know, say, and this is the story that you're gonna tell when you're out fishing with your brothers, you know?
Well, the fire that comes to mind right off the top is we had a large fuel-fed propane fire out at the ARF training facility at the International Airport many years ago. I just so happened to be there for night drills. At the time, I was the airport fire chief. And this is one of our props, and we had these large, I mean, tractor trailer size containers of propane stored there on the property. And some of the valving and the system associated with that caught on fire and had direct flame impingement upon these containers.
Oh dear.
We actually ended up shutting down the International Airport, which is critical infrastructure. I mean, probably the most critical infrastructure in our state. And so I think that was the fire that comes off the top of my mind. Again, the decision to shut down the FAA tower, which effectively closes the airport, considering the evacuation distance that would be required in order to make everyone safe. I don't think the public had any idea, and again, I'm not in the news business, news reporting business, but that was the big one. And also the first oil spill that we had, I was also the operations section chief for that event. So I managed the resources, I moved the chess pieces around for that event. And at the same time, we had the Gulf oil spill, which overshadowed our oil spill here in Salt Lake City. Otherwise, I'm certain that would have been a national news event. So preventing that oil from making it to the wetlands and the Great Salt Lake, I thought was a great effort by the firefighters. And all of our community partners came together to prevent that from happening, because then we would have had an environmental catastrophe in our hands. So those two come to mind. Like I say, preventing our international airport from being leveled to some degree, particularly the FAA tower. And then, of course, like I say, the Chevron oil spill that occurred back in the day.
Is there a single thing that a homeowner can do to help to prevent the fires and their thing? I mean, because right now it seems like the entire western United States is on fire with all these wildfires and everything. Is there any particular thing that a homeowner can do to help keep their lives and their property safe? Absolutely.
There's websites available through Salt Lake City Fire Department, and there's a lot of information on bereadyutah.gov. But I think that the thing that you can do to prepare your family the most is to have the conversation, right? Have a difficult conversation, have an escape plan in place, and really just plan, right? Think, plan, and act. Talk about what are we going to do in the event of a fire? How do we get out of the house? Do we have gathering places established? Have you considered, having to live outside of your home environment for over 72 hours? I mean, Katrina taught us that it may take a while for the cavalry to arrive. And if you think about New Orleans and where that took place, they were surrounded by resources. Whereas Salt Lake City being kind of the gateway to the west, it could be a while before the cavalry arrives. So I think the number one thing off the fire topic, but the number one thing I try and drive home all the time, with September being National Preparedness Month, is to prepare to live outside your home for more than 72 hours. I mean, look at how many people are still without power from our last wind event. And I don't, what is that, 6 days ago, 7 days ago, and you still have folks that, they're struggling with power. So I would say, make sure you have a generator, make sure you have a plan outside of your home. It's great to have, all this storage and stuff in your basement, right? But during a large scale earthquake event, you may not be able to get to your basement.
Right.
And I, as I used to teach, I was one of the original teachers of the CERT program. I used to tell my students, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We just got a fresh coat of snow outside, 10 inches of snow out on the lawn, and your house starts shaking violently. Now you have to get out with whatever you went to bed wearing, and now you're standing out in the snow, all the power's out in the neighborhood, and you look up and down, you realize, man, a lot of my neighbors managed to get out, and that's a beautiful thing. But in the meantime, you're standing in, 8 or 10 inches of snow. You look back at your house, and unreinforced masonry, it's crumbled, it's ready to collapse. It's about that time when the youngest child in the family looks up at you and says, Daddy, I'm cold. What are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to live outside of that environment based on, your plan or not? So disaster emergency planning for me is one of the biggest things I think, or biggest takeaway that I would want everyone to consider in this interview, is that, man, it is up to you. I mean, your life depends on your planning in this environment.
It's one of those, if it is to be, it's up to me. So the name of this series is called Jessops Journal. This is my journal, okay? This, my friend, is your journal, okay? Rustico made that for you. Okay, now you notice yours is nice and smooth. Well, mine's got all kinds of scars and everything because I handmade this. And I picked this piece because it was going to be something that they were going to toss. But I says, no, to me, life comes with scars. But you're going to be able to make all kinds of marks on that thing and write marks inside of that. The question that I ask everybody is, and let me get into my broadcaster voice. Okay. Battalion Chief Jeffrey James Thomas, how do you want to leave your mark?
It's a difficult question that I ponder. I mean, there's so many things that I would like to say, but I guess the mark that I want to leave is that I left this place better than I found it, and that I was able to raise 3 great citizens in our community, my children, my grandchildren. My family is my greatest legacy. Regardless of anything else I've done in this world, I believe that the human beings that I leave behind is my greatest treasure and joy.
Well said and agreed. Well, thank you very much for coming on Jessops Journal. And there's other people that I want to thank. Of course, we've got the people with Rustico, with Jessops Journal, the folks at Ogden's Own Distillery, they're doing the hand sanitizer, and we have some adult beverages here for you. Taylor Cooperative is the people that try to make me look good, along with, of course, Ed, my photographer, my collab out there. Thanks, Ed. And, we're both wearing hats. Got to have a hat, so JW Custom Hats makes all mine. This is the thing I want people to remember. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. With another entry into Jessops Journal and Battalion Chief Jeffrey James Thomas, I'm Doug Jessop, ABC4 News.